Good morning, dear students. Welcome to Concept Class. Today, we will study one of the most dramatic and decisive movements in the history of India's freedom struggle, the Quit India movement of 1942. This was the last great mass movement launched under Mahatma Gandhi's leadership. The entire country rose as one, declaring that the British must quit India. We will learn about how this movement started, what caused it, what happened during it, and why it became such a landmark in our struggle for independence. By 1939, World War II had broken out in Europe without any discussion or consent. Britain declared that India too was at war with Germany. Indian leaders were furious. Once again, decisions about India were being made without Indians. The Indian National Congress had already made it clear that India would cooperate with Britain only if freedom was granted first. But Britain ignored this demand, showing that it still saw India as a colony, not a partner. This created widespread anger and mistrust. By early 1942, the situation was becoming desperate for the British. Japan had entered the war and was advancing rapidly across Asia. To gain Indian cooperation, Prime Minister Winston Churchill sent Sir Stafford Cripps to India. Cripps promised that after the war, India would be given dominion status, which meant internal self-government but not complete independence. However, there was no guarantee that this promise would actually be implemented. Cripps also proposed that provinces could choose whether or not to join the future Indian Union, a clear threat to national unity. The Cripps mission failed miserably. Congress leaders were disappointed that there was no talk of immediate independence. They also strongly opposed the idea that provinces could refuse to join the Union, as this would lead to disunity and encourage separatism. Gandhi summed up the general feeling when he described the Cripps offer as a post-dated check on a crashing bank. The failure of this mission convinced Gandhi and other leaders that the British had no intention of leaving India voluntarily. Meanwhile, the Japanese army was advancing through Southeast Asia. They had already captured Burma, which shared a border with India. There was a real danger that Japan might invade India next, but people saw how weak and unprepared the British were to defend the country. This created the belief that only a free and united India could protect itself from foreign invasion. This fear of a Japanese invasion added urgency to the demand for the British to quit India immediately. There were several causes that led to the Quit India movement. First, the failure of the Cripps mission shattered all hopes of a peaceful transfer of power. Second, the Japanese threat brought the war to India's doorstep. Third, wartime inflation, shortages, and unemployment had made life miserable for ordinary Indians. Finally, after years of broken promises, Indians were no longer willing to wait. They wanted complete independence now. Gandhi decided that it was time to give a final call for freedom. On 8th August 1942, the All India Congress Committee met at Gowalia Tank Maidan in Bombay. Now, Mumbai. Here, the historic Quit India resolution was passed. Mahatma Gandhi addressed the gathering and gave the stirring call: do or die. He said, we shall either free India or die in the attempt, but we shall not live to see the perpetuation of our slavery. The resolution declared that India would no longer tolerate British domination. It authorized a peaceful, non-violent struggle, demanding that the British leave India immediately. The British government acted swiftly and ruthlessly. Within 24 hours of the resolution, all top Congress leaders, including Gandhi, Nehru, and Patel, were arrested and imprisoned without trial. The Congress party was banned and its offices sealed. The British thought that by removing the leaders, they could crush the movement before it began. But the result was just the opposite. The people rose spontaneously across the country. The arrest of the leaders acted like a spark in dry grass. Protests broke out in towns and villages all over India. Workers went on strike, students left their schools and colleges, peasants refused to pay taxes. Railway tracks were uprooted, telegraph wires were cut, and government buildings were set on fire. In some areas like Balia in Uttar Pradesh, Satara in Maharashtra, and Midnapore in Bengal, people even set up parallel governments. For the first time, the entire country moved in unison. This was truly a people's movement. Women and young people played a remarkable role in the Quit India movement. Aruna Asaf Ali defied British orders and hoisted the national flag at Gowalia Tank Maidan. Usha Mehta and her friends ran an underground radio station that broadcasted news of the movement and messages from leaders. Women served as couriers, nurses, and protest organizers. Students formed secret groups, distributed pamphlets, and spread the call for freedom. The movement showed that India's struggle had become the people's struggle, cutting across gender and age. The British response was extremely brutal. The army and police used bullets, lathis, and even bombs against unarmed civilians. There were public floggings, and entire villages were burnt as punishment. Over 10,000 Indians were killed or injured during the repression. Newspapers were censored, and the press could not report the truth. But despite the cruelty, the British could not crush the spirit of freedom. Gandhi was imprisoned at Aga Khan Palace in Pune, but even from there, his presence was felt across the nation. He continued to urge the people to remain nonviolent, even in the face of brutality. He reminded everyone that true freedom could only be achieved through truth and nonviolence. His slogan, "Do or Die," gave courage to millions, becoming the spiritual and moral force of the movement. The Quit India movement was a turning point. Though it did not bring immediate independence, it shattered the myth of British control. It showed that the entire nation, rich and poor, Hindu and Muslim, men and women, stood united against foreign rule. It convinced the British that their rule in India was no longer sustainable. After 1942, their main question was not if they should leave India, but when. By mid-1944, the movement was suppressed with great force. The Congress remained banned for a while, and thousands stayed in jail. But the British realized that they could not govern India without Indian cooperation. The movement ignited a sense of unity and courage that could never be extinguished. Within 3 years of this great uprising, India finally achieved her independence. To summarize, the Quit India movement began due to the failure of British promises, the Japanese invasion threat, and people's growing frustration. The Quit India resolution called for direct action under the slogan "Do or Die." Despite harsh repression, people from all sections of society participated. It was the last great mass movement that prepared India for her final victory in 1947. Students. The Quit India movement was not merely a protest, it was a declaration of national will. It proved that Indians were ready to sacrifice everything for freedom. Gandhi's leadership gave it moral strength, while the people gave it life and energy. Just 5 years later, in 1947, India became free. The Quit India movement will always remain a shining example of courage, sacrifice, and unity. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed our journey. Don't forget to like and subscribe our channel for more videos.